And so what I wanted to do with Leonardo is to show what are the ingredients of real creativity, of thinking out of the box, of seeing patterns across disciplines. Because what Leonardo represents, and what his great iconic drawing Vitruvian Man is a symbol of, is somebody who stands at the intersections of the arts and the sciences and loves all the disciplines. That's the cool thing about being in a town like this, where people from very different disciplines all mix. When I used to go to Steve Jobs' product launches, he would end with a slide that had a street sign. And the street sign was always the intersection of the arts and technology. He said, if you stand at that intersection, you'll be standing where innovation and creativity occur. Obstacles showing how water swirls, which becomes the pattern in nature that he sees across all disciplines and that he loves so much. He observes things and starts keeping a notebook. Observes the type of thing that we all observe when we're 10 years old. But unfortunately, we tend to outgrow our wonder years and quit observing them. Like why a bird's wing flaps up faster than flaps down. How the air goes across the curve of a bird's wing. So he's one of the first to understand Bernoulli's principle. How the sky is blue. Something Einstein put in his notebook as well. We see the blue sky every day, but it's people like Leonardo who spend time wondering, why is it blue? And then doing experiments, throwing up water vapor, purified water, regular water, seeing what makes the scattering of light work. He even writes in his notebook as a young kid, describe the tongue of a woodpecker. This is where I do a double take. I go, wait a minute. Who wakes up one morning and decides they need to know what the tongue of a woodpecker looks like? How would you even find out? I mean, you get a woodpecker and try to grab it and open its mouth. It's not something he needed to paint the flight of birds or to build a flying machine. He needed it because he was Leonardo. After a while, his curiosity becomes pure, becomes obsessive, and it becomes for curiosity's own sake. Something that we also tend to lose a bit after our wonder years, is just being curious for its own sake. He's lucky to move to Florence. At age 12 or so, his father brings him there, and Leonardo is a bit of a misfit. Not only is he illegitimate, he's gay, he's left-handed, he's a vegetarian, he's a bit of a heretic, he wears purple and pink short tunics, he's a bit of a flashy person, and yet he fits right in to Florence in the 1470s. With Lorenzo de' Medici, a republic, and it's another thing to learn, which is that tolerance for, as Steve Jobs would say, the misfits, the rebels, the round pegs in the square hole. That's what you need if you're going to have a thriving creative culture. You also have, in Florence, a mix of different type of people all working together. First of all, Leonardo, being self-taught, is incredibly lucky to be born the year that Gutenberg opens his print shop and sends an apprentice to Florence. So Leonardo, in his notebooks, says, go down to the stationers by the bridge and find the translation of Euclid. Over and over again, we have 400 books he's buying. But he's also hanging around in Andrea Verrocchio's workshop, which some writers call an artist studio, but it wasn't. It was typical of Florence, where Verrocchio himself is a jewelry maker. But he's got chemists there. He's got cloth makers there. They're making new types of silk. They have people doing statues and doing paintings, but also people doing costumes for pageants and plays. And even young Leonardo helps right there. Everybody knows Brunelleschi's dome. But if you look at it closely when you're there, you'll see the copper ball on top. And what Leonardo does as a young apprentice in the shop is he helps concentrate the rays of the sun to solder the copper ball and do the mechanisms to place it on top of Brunelleschi's dome. So here's a guy from very early age who loves the connection of art and engineering, who believes there's not much of a distinction, just as Steve Jobs did, between beauty in engineering, beauty in art, beauty in architecture. People say, well, he helped invent the helicopter. Not exactly. That was for a play. He was a theater producer first and foremost. He did the props. That was to bring the angels down from the rafters in a play. But the cool thing about Leonardo, which would have made him a really bad notary, but it made him a wonderful genius, was that he blurred the distinction between fantasy and reality. Once he had fantasized about flying machines like this, he dedicated himself to seeing if he could build flying machines. But he also becomes a great painter. This is a painting by Verrocchio, but one of the things you have to remember, swirling and swirling of the stream of a river that connects us to the earth. The connections of us to our environment, always symbolized by swirls and curls of water, and then as he draws it in his anatomy, the curls and swirls of the blood in our body. This angel that he... I once had a mentor in Louisiana, Walker Percy, great novelist. He said there are two types of people come out of Louisiana, preachers and storytellers. He said, for God's sake, be a storyteller. The world has too many preachers. So when you're writing a story like this, you're doing it with sort of a message. And that's one of the main messages, which is nowadays we say you got to focus, you got to specialize, you got to drill down. And yeah, that's more productive in life. You will end up producing more and leaving fewer paintings unfinished, and fewer rivers undiverted, and fewer flying machines grounded, if you totally specialize. But there's a beauty to being like Leonardo, to say that you want to know everything possible about everything that could possibly be known. He was lucky because Gutenberg makes it possible. We're lucky because the internet now makes it more possible. But that ability to be curious about everything leads to something that also isn't, quote, useful. Just like being a non-specialist isn't useful. It leads you to start dissecting in order to get the painting right, but then keep dissecting. So you go to the heart, the liver, and everything else just because you want to keep drilling down. You want the knowledge for its own sake. And in universities, I was lucky, I was here, and I got to take courses all over. I took, didn't take Dudley's course, but I took, Bossard's course in computer science. I took, Daniel Aaron's course, and so I got to skip around with stuff. But when my daughter came here, she was told, you got to, specialize. She did computer science. She did what she was told. I still think it's really cool not to come to a place like Harvard or to live a life that says I'm only going to learn things because they're useful and I'm going to specialize because it'll be better for my career. I'll end with one more thing, sort of along those lines. The tongue of the woodpecker. It's 3 times longer than the beak of the woodpecker. When it retracts, it circles the woodpecker's brain. So when it hits the bark at 10 times the force that would kill a human, it cushions the brain. There's no reason you need to know that. It's absolutely useless information. But I thought that maybe, having heard about Leonardo, who one day described the tongue of the woodpecker on his to-do list, that you'd want to know just out of curiosity, pure curiosity. Thank you all.